I mean, questions. I mean, the truth is that on any given day, you're full of so many questions. And the truth is, you can't really blame anyone. I mean, have you ever heard someone say, you know, when I get to heaven, when eventually I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God all these questions. I mean, questions like, God, why did Abraham have to wait 25 years when you could have just done it, you know, in the snap of a finger? I mean, you know people, right, with questions. And the truth is, when you truly get into God's presence, any true worshiper knows that in the presence of God, your questions just seem to fall aside, and all you can focus on is the majesty, the glory, the fullness, the goodness of God. I mean, we have all these questions that we think are priority and will be paramount. But when you really get into God's presence, I mean, His presence is everything. It's an answer, right?
Yeah, His presence is everything. It's like when you really embrace His presence, your questions dissolve, because it's like you just get the answer without anybody talking to you. You know, in my pastoral experience, I've had to talk to many people who are going through all kinds of things. But I remember this particular experience, sitting in a living room with a woman whose daughter was murdered in their home. And she was in excruciating pain. As in, she was really in pain. I could see that she was in pain. She was agonizing. And she was almost like literally holding me and saying, Pastor, why would a good God do this? Why will God? Why? Why will God allow this to happen to our family? Why will my daughter just be snatched away from us like that? And I remember sitting down there and just feeling, God, you are the one that has answers to all questions. In fact, you are the answer to every question.
That's right.
And when we get into His presence, and I just wish like I could just toss this woman into the presence of God. To say, the God who can answer every question. Just go and meet that God. I'm just a man of God. I'm not God. You understand? And sometimes you wish you can bring somebody into the presence of the God of the universe, whose presence answer all questions.
His presence literally answers our pain. And I mean, I have personal experiences where, I couldn't seem to look past my disappointment, right? And I couldn't seem to look past the pain and the thought of, but God, you had the power to change it. Why did you let this happen, But as I've come on this journey of learning to see God and learning to lift Him up, I realized that His presence literally answers our pain. And if we learn to look to His presence to be the answer to any kind of pain, and whatever the pain may be, it could be the pain of a disappointment, a betrayal, whatever it may be. Someone may have lost something recently and just is asking the question, God, do you really still love me in spite of what I'm going through and what it seems like you're letting me go through? And God is saying, my presence really is the answer. And I recall this story, just listening to a member of our church, remember Tokwe, and she was talking about the fact that their family had been through a fire incident and she had lost a business, to fire here in Lagos. It was a very sad incident, but, she bounced back from that situation. There was a fire, it took out her entire store, but she bounced back. And she was telling me about, many years after, her family, they had a home, their own home, and it seemed like affliction was literally rising again. And she talked about this night, they were watching their house, they were watching fire, and it seemed like fire was literally going to take this house away. And she said she remembers in that moment looking at the fire, remembering the incident from years ago where they lost this business in a fire. And in that very moment, she said she remembers her children began to lift up this song. If all I say is Jesus, 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 Jesus is more than enough. He's more than enough for the pain. He's more than enough for the fear. He's more than enough for the disappointment. He's more than enough for that gaping hole sometimes that just doesn't want to let you B, you know, the fact that in the middle of the fire, she said her children began to sing, and then she began to sing, and then her husband, and they literally became this wonderful choir in the middle of what looked like a tragedy, lifting up the name of Jesus. I mean, I'm happy to say tonight that they didn't lose the house. The fire didn't take the house down. The fire was supernaturally quenched, you know, but in that moment, she said, the truth is, Jesus was enough.
Yeah.
Jesus
It's
was enough.
always enough. Always more than enough.
More than enough.
More than enough, especially when we then choose to call his name.
Yeah.
And, say his name.
Yeah.
And just allow our hearts to be engulfed by his name.
Yeah.
And that's why that song, if all I say is Jesus, it's more than enough. You know, it's more than enough. It's just a great song to sing, especially in the midst of the situation when you need to say something and you don't know what to say.
So what will you say when the issues confront you? That is worship. That really is worship.
Yeah. Because that's when we glorify God by just calling his name and just mentioning his name. And it just comes true for us as we raise the song. If all I say is Jesus. Always more than enough God, more than enough Jesus.
We worship you, Jesus, for you have captured my heart. You consumed my heart with your love. Jesus, you have captured my heart. You consumed my heart with your love. Oh, you have captured my heart, consume my heart with your love. You have captured my heart, Jesus. My heart, you consume my heart, Jesus. My heart with your love. Oh, you have captured my heart, Jesus. Yeah. Consumed my heart with your love. You captured me, but I'm free. You have captured my heart, consume my heart with your love. Can somebody call the name of Jesus? If all I say is Jesus, 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 that's more than enough. If all I say is Jesus, if all I say is Jesus, Jesus, that's more than enough. Somebody call the name. If all I say is Jesus, Jesus, deliverer, Jesus, that's more than enough. Oh, if all I say is Jesus, if all I say
literally, there's situations you go through and all you can say is Jesus. That's all you can say. It's the start, it's the end, it's the middle, and that's all you can lift up.
So short of
Jesus.
words that you don't even know what to say.
I mean, what can you say when you're looking at
just
fire? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, but I can't sing that song without thinking about him as the God who delivers from fire. And there's just something powerful about connecting your worship to the name of God and recognizing that there's power in his name.
That's right.
His name is a weapon. His name is a navigation tool. His name is power. His name just gives you light and clarity. His presence answers your pain.
Yes.
But his name is such an anchor, isn't it?
That's right.
I mean, talking about the names of God and how that just
it's just a great way to worship when you can actually worship with God's name.
Yeah.
Just calling his name, mentioning his name is worship.
That's
because
right.
it talks about the different attributes of God and the different personalities of God.
Yeah.
And when you worship God, you're actually just exalting who he is.
That's right.
So when I call him Jehovah Jireh,
my provider.
I know that he's always there.
And more often than not, you can think about a particular incident where if God didn't provide for you, you know, that was it. But he showed up.
Yeah.
And Jireh becomes personal. So when you lift up his voice and say, Jehovah Jireh, you're acknowledging who he is and you're worshiping because it's personal.
That's right.
There's history there.
So even when I say Jesus, it must be a multi-dimensional name to me. Because in Jesus, we'll find a Jireh, we'll find a Rapha, the God who heals.
The God who heals.
And when Jesus was here alive, he healed. And today, his power is still on us to heal.
Can I confess, one of the reasons why I really, sank my feet into the message of the gospel was that angle of him being Jehovah Rapha. I mean, when I was so young, when I was much younger, I was so sickly. So when I heard that partnership with God was, a way for me to connect with the power of God to heal, I was like, I want that. Sign me up for that. There's healing in the name of Jesus. Sign me up. I am interested, very interested.
Yeah.
So Jehovah Rapha is personal for me.
What about just worshiping him as Jehovah Shalom?
My
the God who gives peace.
I love that one.
One who is peace. And when you then get connected with him, you cannot lack peace.
Yeah.
He said, the covenant of peace that I have with you, I will not break.
Yeah.
But you know the one I love the most?
Tell me.
It's Genesis 16.
Yeah.
The way that
Hagar.
lady, Hagar just described God.
Yeah.
Hagar was treated like a commodity. She was tossed away like you use tissue paper
and just
finish
away.
And just disposable. They just said just go away.
Send her away.
Send her away. She's a slave. I mean, she was bought with money, and all that.
Yeah.
And then, but in the midst of her despondency, well, she
had an encounter.
She didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
But she had an encounter.
Yeah.
And it's just like calling the name of God, and then God just shows up for you. And then she realized that the God, this God that is so far away, is also imminent, is present in my situation. He
Jehovah Rohi, the one who sees me. In fact, it was like a question. Is God really seeing me? Yeah. And I'm sure she was feeling transparent. She was feeling, forgotten, vulnerable, broken, beaten down, all of that. But this God sees me.
So God
really powerful.
He sees me.
It's really awesome.
He sees me when I'm down.
Yeah.
He sees me when I'm confused.
That's right.
He sees me when I'm in lack.
That's
he sees me when I feel ashamed of myself. He still sees me.
Yeah.
And he's saying, look, just depend on me.
That's right.
Depend on my name.
Yeah.
Depend on my name.
Awesome. 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 Moments of just celebrating the name of Jesus and celebrating God. And this time that we've had together would not have been possible without some really wonderful people. I want to just take the time to thank our singers today. God bless you. And also to celebrate our musicians, and just being able to sit together in an atmosphere and lift up his name is priceless. And we want to thank you as well for letting us come into your homes and just giving you a glimpse of what happens when we worship.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for being a part of this. And, when we worship, things happen. When we worship, heaven comes down. When we worship, there's light
That's right.
that comes upon our heart. And
That's
when we
right.
worship, joy is renewed.
That's
Strength
right.
is renewed.
That's right.
And the name of Jesus is glorified.
Glorified.
And that's how we live. We just worship.
Yeah.
We just worship. And if all we say is Jesus, it's more
More
than
than
enough. I
enough.
don't even need a big
Hallelujah.
word, in worship.
Yeah.
Just call his name.
Yeah.
Just call his name. Just call his name. Let's just call his name. Let's call his name.